200 people heard an 8-year-old girl scream, "Daddy!" when a van pulled up to her elementary school. Not one person helped. The principal said it was nothing. Teachers did not listen. A soccer mom rolled up her window, but one person was watching. A 13-year-old homeless boy living in a car across the street who had a special memory that never forgot anything. For 41 hours, Ivy Reeves's life depended on what that boy remembered. And when 97 Hell's Angels learned who saved their brother's daughter, they showed that the people society ignores are often the ones who see the most. Subscribe and comment where you're watching from. Warning: this story has kidnapping themes. 200 people saw it. 0 helped. 1 homeless boy saved her. 97 Hell's Angels gave him a family. That's the story. When you see something wrong, what do? Most people look away. Theo didn't. That's the difference between someone who watches and someone who helps. Which one are you? 1462 Ardon Way. 1462 Ardon Way. 1462 Ardon Way. Ivy Lucille Reeves whispered her address into the dark room, counting the squeaks of her pink rain boot against the cold concrete floor. 1 squeak, 2 squeaks, 3 squeaks. Her father had taught her this when she was 5 years old. If you ever get lost, baby girl, you say your address until someone safe finds you. Reeves don't break. She held the huge leather vest around her small body. It smelled like motor oil and coffee and daddy. The Hell's Angels patch hung down past her knees with a skull that smiled up at her like an old friend. She wore it every Friday. Daddy's lucky day, she always said. Today was Friday. The luck had not come yet. Her wrists hurt where the rope cut into her skin. Her right arm hurt with a bruise shaped like a man's hand. Her lip tasted like metal from where she had bitten the bald man. She bit him hard enough to make him bleed before he pushed her into this room with no windows. But Ivy Reeves was 8 years old, and she had made her father a promise. Reeves don't break. 41 hours. That's how long she had been counting squeaks. 11 months earlier, Garrett Ironside Reeves had watched a man die. The truck stop off Highway 15 smelled like diesel fuel and burnt coffee when Renzo Blay Cortez was shot 3 times in the chest. From very close, like an execution. Garrett saw the shooter's face. He saw the way the man smiled before pulling the trigger. He saw the snake tattoo crawling up another man's neck as he watched. Luis El Fantasma Navarro was a cartel enforcer hired by Sinaloa, the kind of man who made witnesses disappear. But Garrett didn't disappear. He talked. He agreed to tell the truth in court. Federal prosecutors promised protection for him and Ivy. Protection that only went as far as the courthouse steps. The trial was set for Monday, 3 days from now. If Garrett told the truth in court, Navarro would spend the rest of his life in federal prison. If Garrett didn't, the cartel had made the rules painfully clear. Take back your statement, or your daughter dies. Theodore Brennan didn't plan to see the kidnapping. He was just doing what he always did at 3:52 p.m. on a Friday, sitting in the passenger seat of a 2004 Honda Accord with 247,000 miles on it, watching Riverside Elementary's dismissal like it was the most important show on TV. His mother slept in the back seat. Colleen Brennan had worked the night shift at Rosie's 24-hour diner, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Then she drove here so Theo could watch the school while she slept for 4 hours. It was their routine. It had been this way for 7 months, ever since the eviction notice went up and their apartment became someone else's apartment. And their life became this car and a bunch of parking lots, and the hope that tomorrow might be better. Theo was 13 years old. He hadn't been to school himself in 186 days, but he watched this school every afternoon. He knew every parent's car. He knew which kids got picked up by grandparents, which ones walked home in groups, which teachers did dismissal duty. He watched because watching gave him a reason to exist, and because Theo Brennan never forgot what he saw. His mother had been a 911 dispatcher for 11 years before the budget cuts. She had taught him what she knew. Details save lives, Theo. The color of a car, the letters on a plate, the shape of a scar. When everything goes wrong, details are the only things that matter. Theo memorized everything now. License plates, faces, routines, the sounds people made when they were scared versus angry versus lying. It was survival. And at 3:52 p.m. on November 15th, 2024, it became something else completely. The white van went around the block once before parking. Theo noticed. His broken wristwatch said 3:47. It had been stuck at that time for 2 months, but he checked it anyway. An old habit that helped him stay calm. In his head, he added 5 minutes, 3:52. The van was a Dodge Ram, made in 2019. White. Virginia license plates, 7RX4138. Enterprise Rent-A-Car magnet on the driver's side door, but the magnet said Fairfax, Virginia. Wrong state. A rental from the East Coast driven all the way to Sacramento. Theo stored that information away. The driver's side door opened. The man who got out was 6 feet 2 inches tall, maybe 230 pounds, military build, black leather jacket. And crawling up his neck, he could see it even from 60 feet away, was a snake tattoo. Black ink. The head reached his jawline. Theo's heart beat faster. The passenger door opened. Second man. Shorter, 5 feet 10 inches, 175 pounds. Bald head, shaved smooth. Navy blue jacket zipped all the way up. And when he reached for the van's sliding door, his right hand was missing a pinky finger. These aren't parents, Theo thought. These aren't teachers. These aren't anyone who should be here. He watched the snake tattoo man walk toward the school entrance. He watched him look at the crowd of children coming down the steps. He watched his eyes lock onto something, someone specific. And then Theo saw her, the little girl in the huge leather vest. Ivy was carrying her art project, a crayon drawing of her daddy on his motorcycle. The flames she'd added to the wheels were still wet when the man said her name. Ivy Reeves. She stopped. The man smiled, but it wasn't a real smile. His eyes didn't wrinkle. His teeth showed too much. "I don't know you," Ivy said. She took a step back. Her pink rain boots squeaked against the wet concrete. "Your daddy sent me to pick you up, sweetheart. There's been an emergency." Lie. Daddy always picked her up himself. Or Uncle Bones. Or one of the brothers wearing the same patch she wore on her vest. Never a stranger. Never someone whose smile looked fake. "No," Ivy said. "Daddy picks me up." She turned to run. The hand that grabbed her arm was the size of a dinner plate. It squeezed hard enough that she felt something pop under the skin. Hard enough to leave a bruise the exact shape of his hand. Oval, dark purple. A mark she would have for weeks. "Daddy!" Ivy screamed it loud enough to crack the air. "Daddy!" Her art project fell from her hands. Crayon flames scattered across the wet sidewalk. The sliding door of the van flew open. The bald man grabbed her other arm. She kicked. She bit. She sank her teeth into his wrist until she tasted blood. And when he pulled away, she saw the anger in his eyes. and then she was inside the van. The door slammed shut, and Ivy Reeves, 8 years old, wearing her daddy's lucky vest, disappeared into the November gray. Theo was already running. He threw open the car door so hard it bounced back. His mother woke up suddenly in the back seat. "Theo, where?" But he was gone before she could finish asking. 60 feet. His sneakers, held together with duct tape, the left sole flapping with every step slapped against the pavement. His too short jeans showed his ankles to the cold. His gray hoodie flew behind him, the hole in the left elbow letting the November air bite at his skin. But he was running toward something bigger than cold. He reached the school entrance 19 seconds after the van pulled away. The van turned left at Folsom Boulevard. He stored it away. Police will search right. They always search the wrong way. Mrs. Herrera, the dismissal teacher, was helping a kindergartner tie his shoe. A girl just got kidnapped. Theo grabbed her arm. White van, Virginia plates, 7RX 4138. 2 men. One with a snake tattoo on his neck. The other was bald with a missing pinky finger on his right hand. Mrs. Herrera's face went through 3 expressions in 2 seconds. Surprise, confusion, dismissal. "Honey," she pulled her arm back like he had burned her. "That's Marcus Walsh's daughter. She probably got picked up by family. We can't call 911 every time. I saw them grab her." His voice broke. 13 years old, but in this moment he sounded like the child he still was. She screamed, "Daddy!" loud enough for everyone to hear. "Check the security cameras, please." Mrs. Herrera looked at Miss Oakes, the younger teacher, 10 feet away. That look. Theo knew it. He had seen it in grocery store parking lots, in library lobbies, in every place where a homeless kid didn't belong. The look that said problem. "Not my problem." "We'll handle it," Mrs. Herrera said. "You need to leave school property now." What happened next would bother Theo for months. He didn't leave. He ran toward the principal's office instead. He burst through the doors, past the secretary, into the office where Dr. Patricia Holbrook sat behind a desk with a bronze sign that said, "Student safety is our priority." A girl was kidnapped. Theo was crying now, tears he couldn't control streaming down his face. White van, Virginia plates, 7RX 4138. 2 men. One had a snake tattoo. The other was missing his right pinky finger. They grabbed her at 3:52. She was wearing a leather vest. Please. Dr. Holbrook was 52 years old. She had been principal for 14 years. She had 487 students and 32 teachers and a budget problem and a board meeting on Tuesday. She looked at the boy in front of her, homeless, dirty, crying, shouting about kidnapping, and made a decision, the wrong decision. "Young man," her voice was ice cold, "we don't allow false alarms. That was Marcus Walsh's daughter. She's fine. If you disrupt this school again, I will call the police on you for trespassing. I'm not lying. I saw security." The word hit Theo like a slap. "Take this boy off campus, and if he comes back, hold him." Theo looked at Dr. Holbrook, at the bronze sign behind her, at the framed certificate that said Commitment to Excellence in Child Welfare. "Please," he whispered, "just check the cameras. Call her dad, please. We have rules for emergencies." Dr. Holbrook stood up. "We don't need a homeless child causing panic with wild stories for attention." 2 security guards appeared behind him, hands on his shoulders, pressure that said, "Move or we'll make you move." Theo was walked off campus like a criminal. Behind him, inside the school, not a single person picked up a phone. Not a single person checked the cameras. Not a single person called Garrett Reeves to tell him his daughter was gone. If 97 bikers saved that girl, I want you to tell me in the comment section below. Because what happens next is the part nobody expected. An hour later, Theo sat on the curb across from the school. His head was in his hands. His body shook from cold, from fear, from the crushing weight of failure. He had seen everything, remembered everything, and nobody believed him. The girl was gone. She screamed, "Daddy!" And he had done nothing. Not really, not enough. In his mind, he played the moment over and over. The snake tattoo, the missing finger, the license plate, the left turn at Folsom. Every detail perfect, every detail useless. Because nobody would listen. Because he was homeless. Because he was nobody. The rumble of a motorcycle cut through his thoughts. Theo looked up. The man getting off the motorcycle was 61 years old, solid build, shaved head, gray beard braided like something from a Viking movie. His right arm was covered in tattoos, angel wings wrapping around what looked like badge numbers. His leather vest had a patch Theo recognized from the little girl's vest. Hell's Angels. The man was looking at the school entrance like he was searching for someone. Like he was hunting. Theo's gut said run. His brain said, he's one of them. The people the little girl belongs to. He stood up. His legs felt like jelly. His duct-taped sneakers shuffled against the road. Shuffle, scuff, shuffle, scuff, as he walked toward the scariest-looking man he had ever seen in his life. 60 feet. The man turned. He saw Theo, saw the tears still wet on his cheeks, saw the hoodie too thin for this weather, saw the sneakers falling apart. And something in his face changed. Luther Bones Carver had been a murder detective for 23 years. He had talked to 1,000 witnesses. He had learned to read body language the way most people read street signs. And what he saw in this homeless boy's posture, the way his shoulders hunched forward, the way his hands held his stomach, the way he walked like a man walking to his death, told him something. This kid isn't looking for trouble. This kid found trouble, and he needs someone to believe him. Theo stopped 10 feet away. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, in a voice so broken it barely counted as sound, "Please, nobody will listen." She screamed, "Daddy!" She needed her daddy. Bones went completely still. His hand stopped in the middle of touching the chrome of his motorcycle. His eyes locked onto Theo's with a strength that should have been scary, but somehow wasn't. For 3 seconds, Theo counted them. The biker didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't blink. Then he stood. His knees cracked loud like snapping twigs. He walked toward Theo with the careful pace of a man who had learned never to move fast toward scared witnesses. He stopped 3 feet away. And then he did something that broke every assumption Theo had ever made about men who looked like this. He kneeled, right there on the wet road, got down on one knee so he was looking up at Theo instead of down, made himself smaller, made himself less scary. "Son." His voice was low, steady, certain. "Look at me." Theo looked. "I believe you." 3 words. 3 words that broke something open in Theo's chest. "Tell me everything." Theo told him. Not in pieces. Not in the shaky, unsure way he had told the teachers. In complete sentences, with complete details, exactly as his mother had trained him. "I saw them take her from the car across the street. White Dodge Ram van, made in 2019. Virginia plates, 7RX 4138. Enterprise rent-a-car magnet on the driver's door, but the magnet said Fairfax, Virginia. They went around the block once before parking at 3:52 p.m. My watch is broken. But I know the gap, 5 minutes from when it stopped. Bones didn't interrupt, didn't question, just listened. Kidnapper 1, 6 feet 2 inches, about 230 pounds, black leather jacket, Timberland boots, size 13, I saw the print in the mud, snake tattoo on his neck, black ink. The head reaches his jawline, scar on left cheek about 4 inches, looks like a burn. Southern accent, Georgia or Alabama. I couldn't tell which one for sure. Bones's face didn't change, but his breathing did, faster, harder. Kidnapper 2, 5 feet 10 inches, 175 pounds, bald, shaved, smooth, navy blue jacket zipped all the way up, white Adidas sneakers, missing his right pinky finger. I saw it when he grabbed her arm. He walks with a limp on his left leg. Ankle injury makes his walk uneven. Cartel profile, Bones thought. Every detail matches the federal case files. This kid didn't make this up. He can't have made this up. She was wearing a huge leather vest, Hell's Angels patch, pink rain boots with unicorn stickers, denim overalls underneath. She screamed, "Daddy!" when they grabbed her. She dropped her art project, a crayon drawing with flames. The van turned left at Folsom Boulevard. Theo's voice broke on the last word. I tried to tell them, the teachers, the principal. Nobody believed me. They said I was lying for attention. They said I was homeless, so I was causing trouble. They told me to leave. His hands were shaking. I watched her get taken, and I couldn't stop it. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Bones put his hand on Theo's shoulder, firm but gentle, like an anchor. Theo? The biker's voice was rock steady. What's your name again? Theodore Brennan. Theo. Theo? Listen to me very carefully. Bones pulled out his phone. You're not nobody. You're the only person who saw, the only person who remembered, the only person brave enough to keep trying when everyone else quit. He pressed a contact. 1 ring, 2. Garrett's daughter is alive right now because you didn't stop. A voice answered on the other end. Yeah? Gunner, it's Bones. I need every brother within 100 miles at the clubhouse, now. A pause. What's going on? Ironside's little girl was taken outside her school. I've got an eyewitness. Kid with a photographic memory. Saw everything. White van, Virginia plates, cartel profile on 2 kidnappers. They've got a 41-hour window before they move her. The pause lasted exactly 1 heartbeat. Say no more. We're coming. The line went dead. And that was it. No questions about proof or evidence. No worries about legal problems. Just 4 words. Say no more. We're coming. And the full power of brotherhood coming to life. Because that's what family meant. Within 20 minutes, Bones had called every Hell's Angels chapter within a 3-hour ride. Sacramento, Oakland, San Jose, Fresno, Stockton. 97 brothers answered. They didn't ask for proof. They didn't ask for plans. They heard the words, Ironside's kid is gone, and they dropped everything. Jobs, family dinners, sleep. They got on motorcycles and pointed them toward Sacramento like arrows toward a target. Theo watched the calls happen from the passenger seat of Bones's motorcycle. His mother had been told, quickly, gently, by a biker who treated her with more respect than she'd received in 7 months of homelessness. And she had agreed to let Theo stay with Bones until the girl was found. You saved her life today, Bones had told Colleen Brennan. Your son. He's a hero. We're going to make sure the world knows it. Colleen had cried. Theo pretended not to notice. The Hells Angels clubhouse sat at 4200 Stockton Boulevard. a short building with a steel door and windows you couldn't see through. By 5:30 p.m., the parking lot was filled with motorcycles, chrome, polished, arranged in rows with the kind of order Theo had only seen in military shows. Inside, 97 men in leather vests waited. They didn't look like the bad guys from Theo's imagination. Some were old, gray beards, weathered faces, hands that had seen decades of work. Some were young, sharp eyes, restless energy, phones out and ready. Some were dressed like construction workers, others like mechanics, a few like office workers. But every single one wore the same patch, and every single one had answered the same call. At the front of the room stood Garrett Ironside Reeves, Ivy's father. He was 41 years old, built like a brick wall, with hazel eyes that looked exactly like his daughter's. Except now they were red around the edges, and his hands kept making fists he couldn't seem to control. "Theo." Bones brought Theo forward. "Tell them what you told me." 97 bikers went silent. Theo had never had 97 people listen to him in his life. For a moment, his throat closed. The fear of judgment, of disbelief, of more dismissal tried to swallow him whole. Then he looked at Garrett, at the Hells Angels patch that matched the one Ivy wore, at the terror in a father's eyes. And Theo told them everything. The van, the plates, the physical descriptions, the timeline, the direction they turned, every detail his memory had captured, laid out like evidence on an invisible table. When he finished, the room stayed quiet. Then, a man in the back, old, gray, with the look of someone who had seen everything, spoke. "That's a photographic memory, Samuel Preacher." Hollis was 67 years old, a founding member of the Sacramento chapter. His voice carried the weight of authority. "I've seen it twice in my life. The kid's not making it up. He can't make that up." Another man stepped forward. Kevin Bite Tran, 31, heavy, with the pale skin of someone who spent his life in front of computers. "If the van's an enterprise rental, their fleet has GPS tracking. I can get access. Might take a few hours, but I can find it." "Do it." Garrett's voice was gravel. A third man, Raymond Doc Fisher, 63, gray ponytail, tattoo of a medical symbol on his forearm. "If she's been held without food or water for over 24 hours, we're looking at dehydration, maybe worse. When we find her, I'll need to check her fast." A fourth, Alan Professor Briggs, 47, clean-shaven, with kind eyes that seemed out of place among so much leather. "And after, she'll need someone who knows how to talk to hurt kids. I've got training. I'll be there when she wakes up." Garrett looked around the room, at the brothers who had dropped everything, at the specialists already making a rescue plan, at the homeless boy who had given them hope. 41 hours, Garrett said. "That's what we've got before they move her, before the trial Monday, before I'm supposed to tell the truth in court against the man who ordered this." He paused. "Money won't get my daughter back. Lawyers won't get her back. The cops didn't even know she was missing until I called them myself, and they told me to wait 48 hours before filing a report." His voice broke. 48. The room growled, a low, dangerous sound. "But we're not waiting." Garrett stood straighter. Bones is running point. Bite is tracking the van. Doc is getting a medical kit ready. Professor is on standby for Ivy. And every other brother here? You're spreading across this city, door to door if we have to. Someone saw that van. Someone knows where they took her. He looked at Theo. And this kid who everyone dismissed, He's going to help us find my daughter." Theo's chest tightened. "You don't have to," Garrett said. "You've already done more than anyone." "I want to help." Theo's voice was small but sure. "I remember everything. Maybe I'll see something else. Maybe I'll remember something that matters." Garrett stepped forward. He was a foot taller than Theo and twice his weight, covered in tattoos and leather and every visual clue that said dangerous. But when he kneeled, got down on one knee just like Bones had done, his face showed nothing but gratitude. "Thank you," Garrett whispered, "for seeing her, for not stopping." Theo didn't know what to say, so he just nodded, and the hunt began. By midnight, 97 motorcycles had crossed Sacramento like a web. Bones led from the clubhouse, a map of the city spread across a pool table, red pins marking every reported sighting, every dead end, every place where the trail went cold. His detective training had kicked in. Careful, precise, patient, while every other instinct in his body screamed to tear the city apart. Theo sat beside him. The boy hadn't slept, hadn't eaten, though Doc had tried to give him a sandwich twice. He stared at the map with eyes that seemed older than 13, playing everything he had seen over in his mind, searching for something he might have missed. The van turned left at Folsom, Theo said for the 5th time. Left. The police are searching the east side of the city, but they went left, toward the industrial area. Bones nodded. Bytes working on the GPS. Enterprise systems are locked down tight, but he found a back door through their insurance company. Another hour, maybe 2. She doesn't have hours. Bones looked at Theo, at the desperation in his voice, at the way his broken watch kept catching the light every time he checked it. Something he couldn't control. "She's alive," Bones said. "The cartel doesn't want her dead. They want her as leverage. As long as Garrett's testimony is hanging over that trial, they need her breathing. But if he doesn't testify, then they release her, or that's what they'll promise." Bones's voice dropped. "But men like these don't leave witnesses. That's why we find her before Monday. That's why we don't leave this to the cops. They'll follow the rules. Rules take time. Rules get children killed." Theo's hands made fists. "I should have run faster." "You ran as fast as you could. I should have grabbed her." "You're 100 pounds against 2 cartel enforcers. You would have died, and she'd still be gone." Bones turned to face him fully. "You did the only thing that could actually save her. You watched. You remembered. You refused to stop talking even when every adult in that school told you to shut up." He pointed at the map. This hunt, these 97 brothers riding through the night, none of this happens without you. The police don't have the description. The FBI doesn't have the plate number. We have it because you gave it to us." Theo's eyes filled with water. He didn't let the tears fall. At 2:17 a.m., Byte found the van. "Got it!" His voice cut through the clubhouse like a knife. "Enterprise GPS pings every 15 minutes. Last 3 pings came from the same location. 1847 Industrial Parkway, Commercial Warehouse District." Buildings listed as a recording studio, abandoned for 2 years after the owner went bankrupt. Garrett was on his feet before Byte finished talking. "How far?" 12 minutes by bike, maybe 15 with traffic, but there won't be traffic at this hour. "Then we go now." "Wait." Bones held up a hand. "We don't go in blind. Doc, what's the medical situation if she's been held for 34 hours? Doc Fisher stepped forward, his combat medic training clear in the way he thought about the situation. Dehydration's the main worry. A child her size with no water for over a day. She'll be weak, confused, possibly showing early signs of kidney damage. If we find her and she's awake, I need to get fluids into her within an hour. IV if possible, by mouth if not. What about rope burns? Injuries from being tied up? Depends on how tight they tied her. Could be surface level. Could be deep enough to leave permanent scars. Won't know until I see her. Garrett's jaw tightened. And if they hurt her, beyond the ropes, Doc's face softened, the first crack in his medical manner. Brother, I fixed up soldiers in worse shape than anything those men could do to an 8-year-old. Whatever they did, I can stabilize her. I can keep her alive. But we need to get to her first. Bones nodded. Gunner, I want 2 teams, outside and entry. Nobody goes in until we know how many we're dealing with. Last thing we need is them holding a knife to Ivy's throat. What about cops? Someone called from the back. We call them when she's safe. Bones looked around the room. Right now, all they'll do is set up barriers and talk for 6 hours, while a little girl sits in the dark, wondering if her daddy forgot her. We don't talk. We get her out. He turned to Theo. Kid, you said the bald one walks with a limp on his left leg. Anything else about how they move? Weaknesses? Theo closed his eyes. In his mind, he was back on that curb, watching the kidnapping happen in perfect clarity. The driver, snake tattoo, he's the muscle. He moved fast, confident, trained. The bald one is slower. When he pushed Ivy into the van, he used his right arm more than his left, like he's making up for the bad leg. If you take the bald one first, the driver's alone. Bones smiled, a cold, calculating smile. Good. That's good. There's something else. Theo opened his eyes. When they went around the block before they parked, the driver checked his phone twice. He was looking at something. A photo, maybe. Or directions. Like he didn't know what Ivy looked like until he got there. They were sent. Garrett's voice was ice. Hired. Contract job. Which means there's a third person. Someone who gave them the information. Someone who knew what Ivy looked like, what time she got out of school, which exit she'd use. Every man in the room went still. Find out who, Garrett said. But first, we bring my daughter home. 97 motorcycles rolled out at 2:31 a.m., but they didn't all go to the same place. 20 brothers, the first wave, split into 2 teams. 10 for outside, 10 for entry. They'd be the ones to break into the warehouse and get Ivy out. The rest spread out across the city, continuing the door-to-door search, gathering witness statements, building the paper trail that would bury these men in court. Theo rode on the back of Bones's motorcycle, his arms wrapped around the detective's waist, wind slapping against his face like cold hands. The city blurred past in streaks of streetlight and shadow. I'm going to see her, he thought. I'm going to see if she's okay. Please let her be okay. The warehouse appeared at the end of Industrial Parkway like a mouth waiting to swallow them. 3 stories of metal and broken windows. No lights visible from the outside. No movement. No sound except the distant hum of highway traffic. The bikes killed their engines 200 yards out. In the silence that followed, Theo could hear his own heartbeat. Outside team, go. Bones spoke into a Bluetooth headset, his voice barely above a whisper. I want eyes on every exit. If anyone tries to run, they don't get far. 10 shadows broke off from the group, and disappearing into the darkness until they became part of it. 2 minutes passed. All exits covered, no movement. One vehicle in the lot. White van, Virginia plates. It's them. Bones turned to Garrett. Your call, brother? You want in on the entry? Garrett's face was carved from stone. Try to stop me. They entered through a service door on the east side. The lock gave way under a crowbar used by a brother named Tank. 6 feet 4 inches, 280 pounds, forearms like tree trunks. The kind of man who could pry open a vault door with determination alone. The metal screamed once, then went silent. Inside, the darkness was complete. Bones pulled out a tactical flashlight, sweeping the beam across the floor. Dust, debris, old recording equipment piled in corners like bodies. The air smelled like mold and rust and something else, and something that made Theo's throat tighten. Food. Burnt food. Someone had been cooking here recently. They're definitely using this place, Bones whispered. Split up. Doc with Garrett. Tank with me. Everyone else, clear the ground floor. They moved like ghosts. Theo stayed behind Bones, his sneakers, still held together with duct tape, making barely a whisper against the concrete. His eyes had adjusted to the darkness. Now he could see shapes, outlines, the hint of stairs leading up to a second floor. And then he heard it. Squeak. Faint. Distant but clear. Squeak. The sound of a rubber boot against concrete. Bones! Theo grabbed the biker's arm. I hear her. Second floor. That's her rain boot. It squeaks. I heard it when she was walking down the school steps. Bones didn't question, didn't hesitate. He clicked his headset. Second floor. Go. The stairs groaned under their weight. Theo counted the steps. 17 to the first landing. A turn. 14 more to the second floor. His heart pounded so loud he was sure the kidnappers could hear it. At the top, a hallway stretched into darkness. 3 doors on the left, 2 on the right. One at the end, slightly open. Light bleeding through the crack. Yellow light, like a camping lantern. And then, squeak, squeak, squeak. Faster now, frantic, like someone pacing. Bones held up a fist. Stop. He pressed his ear to the closed doors, listened, moved on, stopped at the door with the light. Voices. Low, male. Said to wait until Sunday. We wait until Sunday. She keeps crying, making noise. What if someone hears? It's an abandoned warehouse. Who's going to hear? Bones looked at Garrett, held up 2 fingers. 2 bad guys. Then pointed at the door. Garrett nodded. What happened next took 8 seconds. Tank hit the door with his shoulder, and the lock broke like it was made of paper. Garrett was through before the door finished opening, moving with the speed of a father who had waited 34 hours for this moment. Bones followed half a second behind, flashlight sweeping left, right, center. Lighting up the snake tattoo man rising from a chair, hand reaching for something on the table. The bald man frozen mid-step, eyes wide, mouth open. And in the corner, on a bare mattress stained with who knows what, Ivy. Tiny, shaking. Wrists tied in front of her with rope that had worn raw red lines into her skin. Her father's vest still wrapped around her like armor. Her pink rain boots, one strap of her overalls unhooked, just like Theo remembered, squeaking against the concrete as she pushed herself into the corner, trying to disappear. But her eyes, when she saw Garrett, her eyes went from terror to something else completely. Daddy! The same scream, the same word. But this time, everything was different. Garrett had the snake tattoo man on the ground before the word finished echoing, knee in his back, arm pulled behind him at an angle that had to be dislocating something. Tank was on the bald one, and the way that man screamed when his already bad ankle twisted under 280 pounds of anger. But Garrett wasn't looking at them. He was looking at his daughter. "Ivy, baby girl, I'm here. Daddy's here." He crossed the room in 3 steps, kneeled beside the mattress, reached for the ropes on her wrists with hands that shook like leaves in a storm. Doc was there a second later, medical kit already open, small light checking her pupils, fingers on her pulse. "She's dehydrated, bruised. Rope burns on the wrists, nothing major. Small cut on the lip. Probably a bite she gave one of them." Doc almost smiled. She fought back. "Of course she did." Garrett's voice broke. "She's a Reeves." Ivy threw her arms around her father's neck and held on like she would never let go. In the doorway, Theo watched. He didn't know he was crying until he felt the tears hit his collar. By the time the police arrived, everything was already over. Vincent Malalari, snake tattoo, former Marine, cartel enforcer, lay face down on the warehouse floor, zip-tied and barely awake. His left shoulder was out of place. His nose was broken. He would later tell the police he fell down some stairs, even though there was no staircase near where they found him. Derek Polson, bald, missing pinky, bad ankle, was in worse shape. His already injured leg had buckled when Tank grabbed him. And now he was crying in a corner, unable to stand. His previous toughness completely gone. When the police asked how the bikers had found the warehouse, Bones handed them a thumb drive. Everything's on there. License plate, physical descriptions, GPS data from the rental van, testimony from an eyewitness who saw the kidnapping and was dismissed by school officials. The lead detective, a woman named Torres, who had worked with Bones in his police days, looked at the thumb drive, then at the bikers, then at the 2 men on the ground. "Jesus, Bones. You could have called us. I did call you, at 4:30 p.m. When Garrett first reported Ivy missing, your department told him to wait 48 hours. That was 17 hours ago." Bones's voice was steel. "So we didn't wait." Torres closed her eyes. "That's not the rule. The rule almost got an 8-year-old girl killed." The conversation ended there. In the hours that followed, the guilty witnesses came forward. Not willingly at first. The bikers made sure of that. Darla Peaton, 46, drove a silver Lexus SUV. She lived in a house with a 3-car garage in a neighborhood with rules about grass height. When 2 Hell's Angels knocked on her door at 7:15 a.m., she almost called the police. But something about the way they stood there, patient and silent, made her pause. "Mrs. Peaton," Bones said, "at 3:52 p.m. yesterday, you were in the pickup line at Riverside Elementary. A little girl ran toward your car, screaming for help. You rolled up your window and locked your doors." Darla's face went white. "We have security video from the school parking lot. We have your license plate. We have 3 witnesses who saw you look directly at her and drive away. I didn't." "You didn't what?" "Didn't see her, didn't hear her, didn't care." Darla's eyes filled with tears. She was wearing that vest, the skull and the patches. I thought it was some kind of family argument. I didn't want to get involved. I have children. What if you had gotten out of your car and asked one question?" Bones's voice was quiet, but it cut like glass. "One question. Sweetie, are you okay?" That's all it would have taken. Instead, you saw Leather and decided she deserved whatever was happening to her. Darla's hands shook. That little girl was held for 34 hours because people like you decided she wasn't worth the trouble of helping. She was dehydrated. She had rope burns. She bit one of her kidnappers hard enough to make him bleed because she was fighting to survive. 8 years old. I'm sorry. Don't say sorry to me. Bones handed her a card with the Sacramento Police Department's contact information. You're going to call this number. You're going to tell them exactly what you saw and why you didn't act. And you're going to hope that when your children need help someday, the person they run to isn't someone like you. He walked away before she could respond. Terry Peterson, 71, had been the crossing guard at Riverside Elementary for 9 years. He had a grandchild in 2nd grade. He knew every family, every car, every routine. When Ivy had grabbed his arm and said, "They took me, call 911," he had patted her head and told her to find her daddy. Now, sitting in his kitchen with a Hell's Angel named Professor, a man with kind eyes and a counselor's degree, Terry couldn't stop his hands from shaking. "I saw her every morning," he whispered. "She always waved. She always smiled. And when she needed me, I didn't listen." "Why not?" "I don't know." His voice broke. "She was always so dramatic. Always running around, playing pretend. I thought she was making up stories. Kids do that, don't they? Make up stories? Some do." Professor's voice was gentle but firm. "But the ones who run to adults and say, 'Call 911,' those aren't playing pretend, Mr. Peterson. Those are the ones who need us to pay attention." Terry wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "How do I fix this?" "You can't. Not completely. But you can make sure it doesn't happen again. You can tell the police what you saw. You can tell the truth if there's a trial. And you can spend the rest of your time at that school actually listening when a child says something is wrong." Terry nodded. It was the only response he had left. Dr. Patricia Holbrook was the last to be visited. She was getting ready for a Saturday board meeting when Garrett Reeves appeared in her office doorway, his daughter's hand in his. Ivy was clean now, fresh clothes. Doc had treated her wrists, and Professor had talked to her gently about what happened. She wasn't healed. That would take months, maybe years. But she was safe. And she wanted to see the woman who had refused to help. "Dr. Holbrook." Garrett's voice was controlled, barely. "My daughter has something to say to you." Holbrook's face went white. "Ivy, sweetheart, I'm not your sweetheart." Ivy's voice was small but steady. "You told the boy he was lying. You told him you'd call the police on him. He was trying to help me. He was the only one who tried. I followed the rules. What rule says you threaten a child for reporting a crime?" Garrett stepped forward. "What rule says you ignore eyewitness testimony because the witness is homeless? What rule says student safety is our priority when my daughter was being pushed into a van 50 feet from your office?" Holbrook's mouth opened and closed. "I've already filed a complaint with the school board and the district superintendent and the Department of Education." Garrett's voice dropped to a whisper. "But I want you to know something, Dr. Holbrook. That boy you dismissed? He has a photographic memory. His description of the kidnappers was so accurate, the FBI used it to connect these two to 3 other kidnappings across 3 states. His license plate match led us directly to the warehouse where they were holding Ivy. He did what you refused to do. He paid attention. He listened. He acted. He paused. You're going to lose your job. That's already happening. But I want you to remember every day for the rest of your life that my daughter is alive because a homeless boy didn't stop trying, even after you tried to silence him." Garrett turned and walked out. Ivy followed. At the doorway, she paused, and looked back at the bronze sign behind Holbrook's desk. "Student safety is our priority." "That's a lie," Ivy said, and then she left. When Vincent Mallory was arrested, he was wearing reading glasses. The FBI found him at the Budget Inn, 3 miles from the school, sitting on the edge of his bed watching a college football game on the room's old TV. He had a half-eaten pizza on the nightstand and a Coors Light in his hand. He looked up when the agents entered, confused at first, then resigned. "The kid," he said. "The homeless kid at the school. He saw us, didn't he?" Nobody answered. "I told Derek to wait until she was inside the building. I told him the van was too visible. But he said we had an hour window, max, that the father would be expecting her home by 4 o'clock. The agents read him his rights. Mallory kept talking anyway, like a man who had already accepted that his life was over. They paid $75,000. Cash, for a little girl. $75,000 to grab an 8-year-old so her daddy wouldn't tell the truth in court against a killer. He laughed, a hollow, broken sound. "I've done a lot of things. But when she looked at me, when she said, 'I don't know you,' and tried to run," he shook his head. "She bit Derek, made him bleed. Even tied up, she kept kicking. Kept saying her address over and over again, like it was a prayer. 1462 Ardon Way. Over and over. I almost let her go." "Almost? Why didn't you?" Mallory looked at the agent who had asked. "Because they would have killed me. That's how this works. You take the money, you do the job. You don't, you disappear." He held out his wrists for the handcuffs. "Tell the father, I'm sorry." "I know he won't believe it, but tell him anyway." Derek Polson never said sorry. He got a lawyer right away, refused to cooperate, and said through his entire court appearance that he had been set up. The judge, a woman named Patricia Moreno, who had grandchildren of her own, set his bail at $2 million and recommended he be held in protective custody. "Flight risk," she said. "And, given the nature of the charges, I suspect he wouldn't last long in general prison." The charges against both men included felony, kidnapping assault on a minor conspiracy to obstruct justice. Racketeering federal prosecutors were already filing additional charges related to the cartel connection, which would likely add another decade to their sentences. The trial for Luis El Fantasma Navarro, the original target of Garrett's testimony, would go ahead on Monday. And now, with his daughter safe, Garrett Reeves fully intended to take the stand. "It's over." Bones stood in the doorway of the room where Theo had been waiting, a cup of coffee in his hand, and exhaustion carved into every line of his face. The early morning sun was just beginning to come through the clubhouse windows, painting everything in shades of gold. Both of them in custody. FBI is taking lead on the cartel angle. Sacramento PD is handling the local charges. School board starting an investigation into Holbrook and the teachers who ignored the reports. Theo looked up from the chair where he'd been sitting for hours. "And Ivy? She's with her dad. Doc says she's going to be fine. Physically, emotionally. That'll take time. Professors already set up appointments with a child psychologist who works with trauma." Theo nodded. His broken watch caught the morning light. "You should get some sleep," Bones said. "Your mom's in the next room. We've got a pull-out couch that's not completely terrible." "I can't sleep." "I know." Bones crossed the room and sat down in the chair beside him. "I couldn't either. First time I helped save someone. The adrenaline takes hours to go away, sometimes days. How did you—" Theo paused. "How did you know I was telling the truth?" Bones tilted his head. What do you mean? Everyone else thought I was lying. The teachers, the principal, they looked at me and saw homeless kid. Problem, nuisance. But you didn't. Theo's voice broke. Why? Bones was quiet for a long moment. 23 years as a detective, he finally said. You learn to read people. The way they hold themselves when they're lying versus when they're scared. The way their eyes move. The specific details they include or don't. He turned to face Theo fully. But you want to know the real reason. Theo nodded. Because you were crying. Bones's voice softened. When I found you on that curb, you were crying. Not angry, not defensive, not trying to prove anything. Just crying. Because nobody would listen. Because you knew a little girl was in danger, and nobody cared. He put his hand on Theo's shoulder. Liars don't cry like that. They don't break down when nobody's watching. They don't keep trying after 4 rejections. You weren't performing for an audience. You were just desperate. And desperate people telling the truth have a quality that's impossible to fake. Theo's eyes filled with water. I thought I was nobody. You thought wrong. Bones squeezed his shoulder. You saved her life, Theo. Not us. Not the 97 brothers who showed up. You. Because you were the only person at that school who actually saw what happened. And you didn't stop fighting until someone listened. But if you hadn't believed me, then we would have kept looking, but we found her in 34 hours instead of 48. In 34 hours, she was still awake, still fighting, still saying her address like her daddy taught her. Bones paused. In 48 hours, she would have been moved. Or worse, the window was closing, and you gave us everything we needed to beat it. Theo finally let the tears fall. He had been holding them back since Friday afternoon, since the van pulled away and he ran too late, since the principal threatened to call the police on him, since he sat on that curb and believed, truly believed, that he had failed. But Ivy was safe. Ivy was with her father, and he had done that. The room voted at 8:47 a.m. Preacher stood at the front of the table, his gray beard and weathered face giving weight to the moment. Around him, the brothers who had answered the call, 97 men who had dropped everything to help a stranger, waited in silence. We found Ironside's daughter because of this boy. Preacher's voice was gravel and smoke. Theo Brennan, 13 years old, living in a car with his mother because the world decided they weren't worth helping. He paused. The world was wrong. Nods around the room. I'm proposing we do something about it. The chapter fund has enough for first month's rent plus security deposit on a 2-bedroom apartment. Colleen Brennan has job experience as a 911 dispatcher. I've already reached out to the Sacramento Sheriff's Department and they're willing to interview her Monday. Theo needs to be back in school, needs stability, needs people who don't look at him and see a problem. He looked around the table. All in favor? For a moment, nothing. Just the ticking of a clock on the wall. The distant hum of motorcycles outside. The sound of a chapter waiting to decide. Then every single hand went up. Not a moment's hesitation. Not a single disagreeing voice. 97 men voting as one to help a woman and child they'd barely known for 20 hours. Motion passes. Preacher actually smiled. A rare sight. Bones, make it happen. Bones nodded. And somewhere in the next room, asleep on a pull-out couch that was indeed not completely terrible, Theo Brennan didn't know yet that his life had just changed forever. 3 days later, Garrett Reeves took the stand. The federal courthouse in Sacramento was a building designed to scare people. Marble floors, high ceilings, the kind of silence that made every footstep echo like a gunshot. In the gallery, 47 Hells Angels sat in perfect rows, their leather vests cleaned and pressed, their faces blank. They weren't there to threaten. They were there to witness. And in the front row, holding Doc's hand because her father was on the stand and she didn't want to be alone, Ivy Reeves watched her daddy do what the cartel had tried so hard to prevent. "Mr. Reeves." The prosecutor's voice was steady. "Can you describe what you saw at the truck stop on January 15th of last year?" Garrett looked at the defense table, where Luis El Fantasma Navarro sat in an orange jumpsuit, his face carefully blank. Then he looked at Ivy, at the fading bruise on her cheek, at the bandages still wrapped around her wrists. "Yes, ma'am," he said. "I can describe exactly what I saw." And for the next 2 hours, he did. Every detail, every face, every gunshot. The jury thought about it for 67 minutes. They came back with guilty on all counts. Navarro would spend the rest of his life in a federal prison. No chance of getting out. When the verdict was read, Ivy squeezed Doc's hand and whispered, "Daddy did it." Doc squeezed back. "Yes, little one. He did." The apartment was small but clean. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with a window that actually opened, a bathroom with a shower that made hot water. To Theo, who had spent 7 months living in the back seat of a Honda Accord, it looked like a palace. "This is yours." Bones handed Colleen the keys. "First month plus security deposit covered by the chapter fund. There's a list of local resources on the counter, food bank, clothing help, that kind of thing. And your interview with the sheriff's department is scheduled for Monday at 10 a.m. Colleen Brennan, 39 years old, former 911 dispatcher, mother who had never stopped fighting even when the world told her to give up, looked at the keys in her hand. "I don't understand." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Why? We just met you. You don't owe us anything." "You're right. We don't owe you anything." Bones looked at Theo, who was standing in the doorway of what would be his bedroom, staring at the bed like he'd never seen one before. "But your son saved a little girl's life. He did something that 97 grown men couldn't have done without him. That matters. That earned something. But, Mrs. Brennan." Bones's voice was gentle but firm. "When I was a cop, I saw the worst of humanity every single day. I saw what people do to each other when they think nobody's watching, and I started to believe that's all there was. Cruelty, selfishness, not caring." He paused. "Your son proved me wrong. Standing on that curb, crying because nobody would listen, but still trying. That's not nothing, that's everything." Colleen's eyes filled with tears. "Also," Bones added, "we need good dispatchers. Sheriff's Department just lost 2 to budget cuts. You've got 11 years of experience, and a son with a photographic memory who can probably give you license plates in his sleep. They'd be idiots not to hire you." Colleen laughed, a wet, broken sound that was half sob, half relief. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you. Don't thank me." Bones nodded toward Theo. "Thank him." Garrett held the box like it contained something precious. He had asked Bones to set up the meeting. Just him, Theo, and Ivy. No other brothers, no watchers. Just the father who had almost lost everything, the daughter who had survived 41 hours of terror, and the boy who had made it all possible. They met at the clubhouse, in a small room with leather couches and a coffee table covered with motorcycle magazines. Ivy sat next to her father, her pink rain boots squeaking against the floor as she swung her legs. The rope burns on her wrists had started to heal. still visible, but no longer raw. "Theo." Garrett's voice was thick. "I don't know how to say this. I've been riding with my brothers for 19 years. I've seen a lot, done a lot. But I have never owed someone as much as I owe you." Theo shifted uncomfortably. "You don't. Please, let me finish." Theo nodded. "When I got the call that Ivy wasn't at school, when I realized that nobody had seen her leave, when the police told me to wait 48 hours, Garrett's jaw tightened. I thought I had lost her. I thought my little girl was gone, and there was nothing I could do." He looked at Theo, really looked, seeing past the too-thin body and the worn clothes and the duct-taped sneakers. "And then Bones called, and he told me about you, about what you saw, about how you tried to tell 4 different adults, and every single one of them dismissed you, about how you were sitting on that curb crying because you thought you had failed." Garrett's voice broke. "You didn't fail, Theo. You were the only person at that school who cared enough to pay attention, the only person who saw my daughter as a human being worth saving. Everyone else saw a biker's kid in a leather vest and decided she wasn't their problem." Ivy leaned forward. "You remembered my boots," she said. "The squeaky ones." Theo blinked. Yeah, I did. How? I don't know. I hear things and they stay. My mom says it's because I pay attention. Most people don't really listen. They just wait for their turn to talk." Ivy nodded seriously, like this made perfect sense to her 8-year-old mind. "I said my address," she said. "The whole time. 1462 Ardon Way. Over and over. Daddy taught me that. That was smart. So was what you did." Ivy's voice was quiet but firm. "Nobody else tried to help me. Just you." Theo didn't know what to say. Garrett cleared his throat. "Which brings me to this." He opened the box in his lap. Inside, resting on a cushion of velvet, was a watch. It was the same style as Theo's broken one, simple, useful, the kind you could buy at any department store. But this one shined. This one worked. And carved on the back, in letters so small Theo had to look closely to read them, T.B., the one who saw. November 15th, 2024. "The date you saved my daughter," Garrett said. "The date you proved that one person paying attention can change everything." Theo's hands shook as he lifted the watch from the box. He had worn his broken watch for 2 months, had checked it over and over, even though it always said 3:47, because the routine calmed him. Because in a world where he had lost almost everything, that watch was still his. This new watch was more than a replacement. It was proof that someone had seen him, really seen him, not as a homeless kid, not as a problem to be dismissed, but as Theodore Brennan, 13 years old, who had done something that mattered. "Thank you," he whispered. Garrett reached out and put his hand on Theo's shoulder. "No, kid, thank you." 6 months later, the world looked different. Colleen Brennan was a 911 dispatcher again, not for Sacramento, but for the neighboring county, which had offered her a job with benefits and a schedule that let her be home when Theo finished school. She still cried sometimes in the shower, where she thought he couldn't hear. But they were different tears now, relief instead of sadness. Theo was back in school. Lincoln Middle School, 8th grade. A building full of strangers who didn't know about the Honda Accord or the eviction or the 7 months of parking lots. He kept mostly to himself. But he was there, learning, eating in a cafeteria instead of a car, sleeping in a bed instead of a back seat. His new watch said 2:37 p.m. when the text came through. Party at the clubhouse, Saturday, 3 p.m. You and your mom are invited. Bones. Theo smiled. The clubhouse had become a second home over the past 6 months. Not in any official way. He wasn't a member, would never wear a patch. But he was welcome. The brothers remembered what he had done. They treated him like one of their own. And Ivy called him her friend now. The party was for Ivy's 9th birthday. Red and white streamers hung from the clubhouse rafters, Ivy's favorite colors. A 3-layer cake sat in the center of the table, chocolate with raspberry filling, because Doc had asked her 17 times what flavor she wanted, and she had finally admitted that chocolate raspberry was the only correct answer. 97 motorcycles were parked in the lot outside. Not all the same brothers who had answered the call 6 months ago. Some had moved, some had retired, some had simply returned to their own lives. But enough. Enough to fill the room with laughter and stories and the rumble of voices that sounded like family. Theo stood at the edge of the crowd, watching. Ivy spotted him first. "Theo!" She ran across the room, her pink rain boots, brand new but still with unicorn stickers, squeaking against the concrete. She crashed into him with a hug that nearly knocked him off his feet. "You came!" "Of course I came." Theo hugged her back, careful of the arm that was still a little sore sometimes, still a little protective. "Happy birthday, Ivy. I'm 9 now." She said it like it was the most important announcement in the history of announcements. That's basically a teenager. That's not how math works. Close enough. Theo laughed. Garrett appeared behind his daughter, a bottle of root beer in his hand. He looked different now, more relaxed, less haunted. The trial was over. Navarro was in prison. The cartel had moved on to other targets, other pressures, other nightmares. And Ivy was safe. "Good to see you, Theo." Garrett offered his free hand and Theo shook it. "How's school?" "Fine. I'm okay at most subjects. Great at memorizing. Still can't draw to save my life. That's fine. The world needs people who remember. Artists are overrated." From across the room, Professor laughed. "I heard that, Garrett." "Good." Ivy tugged on Theo's sleeve. "Come see my birthday table. Doc made me a cake with sparklers." Sparklers. Indoor sparklers. They're not real fire, but they look like real fire. She dragged him toward the cake. Still whole. Candles not yet lit, but already surrounded by a crowd of leather-wearing bikers, all pretending they didn't want a piece early. Theo let himself be pulled. Later, after the cake was cut and the presents were opened, and Ivy had declared that she would never take off her new helmet, pink with flame stickers, sized perfectly for the back of her daddy's motorcycle, Preacher called for silence. The room went quiet. 6 months ago, he said, I stood in this room and asked you to vote to help a woman and a boy we didn't know, because that boy had done something extraordinary. He looked at Theo. Today, I want to recognize what happened next. Theo Brennan is back in school. His mother is back at work. They have a home. They have stability. They have a future. Nods around the room. But more than that, they have family. Not blood, not patches, just people who saw them, who chose them, who refused to let them fall through the cracks of a system that doesn't care about people like us. Preacher raised his glass. To Theo Brennan, the one who saw. 97 glasses rose. The one who saw. Theo's eyes burned. He didn't look away. Ivy squeezed his hand. He didn't hide the tears that slipped down his cheeks, because these weren't tears of shame or failure or exhaustion. These were the tears of someone who had been lost and was finally found. This story isn't about bikers. It's not about kidnapping or cartels or courtroom drama. It's not about the $75,000 that changed hands or the life sentence that ended a murderer's freedom. This story is about a boy who paid attention when nobody else would. It's about an 8-year-old girl who said her address in the darkness because her daddy taught her that hope was something you practice. It's about a father who almost lost everything and learned that family means more than blood. And it's about 97 strangers who dropped their lives at 2 a.m. to rescue a child they had never met. Because that's what brotherhood means. The world is full of people like Dr. Patricia Holbrook, people who see problems and look away, who hear cries for help and dismiss them as inconvenient, who build careers on words like safety and priority, while actual children slip through their fingers. But the world is also full of people like Theo Brennan, 13 years old, homeless, hungry, invisible to everyone who should have seen him. And still, he ran across that street. Still, he grabbed that teacher's arm. Still, he burst into the principal's office and told the truth, even when they threatened to call the police on him. Still, he sat on that curb and refused to leave, because somewhere in that city, a little girl needed her daddy, and nobody else cared enough to find her. That's the lesson. You don't need 97 motorcycles to change someone's life. You don't need a leather vest or a road name or a chapter vote. You don't need official permission or institutional approval or a bronze sign that says, "Student safety is our priority." You just need to see, really see, and then you need to act. If you're watching this right now, there's someone in your life who needs you to see them. A neighbor whose lights are always off, a child who flinches when adults raise their voices, a coworker who stopped smiling 6 months ago, a student who sits alone at lunch. You don't know their story. You might never know their story, but you know that something is wrong, and you have a choice. You can be Darla Peaton, rolling up your window and locking your doors. You can be Dr. Patricia Holbrook, following rules that protect the institution instead of the child. You can be every person who saw Theo Brennan sitting on that curb and decided he wasn't worth the trouble of asking if he was okay. Or you can be Bones. One man, one moment, 3 words. I believe you. That's all it took. That's all it ever takes. See someone. Believe them. Act. Theo checks his watch now out of habit. Not because he has to. The face shows whatever time it actually is. Not frozen. Not broken. Not a reminder of everything he lost. Just a watch. Just time. Just the ordinary magic of a life that keeps moving forward. The words carved on the back have faded slightly from 6 months of wear, but he knows what they say. He traces the letters sometimes, late at night, when his mother is asleep and the apartment is quiet and he needs to remember that he matters. T.B., the one who saw. November 15th, 2024. He was 13 years old when he saved a little girl's life. He was nobody to everyone who should have helped him. And he changed everything. Anyway, if this story moved you, subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Tell me in the comments, who is your Bones? Who believed you when nobody else would? Or, if you're still waiting, if you're still sitting on that curb, still crying because nobody will listen, know this: you are not nobody. You are the one who sees, and someone out there is waiting for you to save them. Thank you for watching. I'm proud of each and every one of you.